You're hanging with Mrs. Housley, and I'm Mrs. Housley. How are you feeling? Remember, last week, that's what we talked about. Last week was 7 days ago, 1 whole week. Actually, it was 8 days because today is Thursday. Last week, I was here on Wednesday. We talked about feelings, and we talked about being happy or sad or angry or mad. Well, that's the same thing, right? Or bored or tired. I'm definitely tired. I didn't get a lot of sleep again. That's okay. So I can sleep later. So anyway, this week, we're going to talk about something else. Look behind me. Can you see it? There's that, there's that. What are those? What are all of those? Those are planets. Well, the sun's not a planet. That's our solar system. Now, the solar system is kind of a hard thing for small children to understand, but basically, this is where we live. This is the sky and space and the universe. This is what's up there, okay? Up there, I'm pointing to outside in the sky, all in space. So I want to talk about that because, you know what? My son wants to be what's called an aerospace engineer. And that's, I don't know, that's like building rocket ships and, airplanes and stuff, learning about flying and how to make things fly. And he has this video game where it's a space game, and it's really neat. And I was watching him play it, and I thought, you know what? Let's talk about space this week because you guys need to know about it, right? Because we learn about this stuff. Some of the kids in our 4-year-old program talked about space. I'm not sure if we got there this year yet, but it was supposed to be on the schedule. So space is cool. It's really cool. Let's talk about what's in space. All right. The most important thing, as far as I am concerned, is that big yellowish orange bright ball of light that's in the sky. What's that called? Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. It's the sun. Now, some of you may or may not know this, but the sun is super hot, like you guys can feel when it's summertime. Even in the wintertime, you can feel the heat from the sun, even though it's cold outside. The sun is big. It's like super big. You can't even imagine how big the sun is. And like I said, it's super duper hot. And it's a star. Did you know that? Did you know that the sun is actually a star? It's the biggest star in our whole universe. So that's something cool that, I don't know, maybe some grown-ups don't even know that the sun is a star. And it burns, and it's a gas, which is a hard thing to explain, but the sun is big, super, super duper big. It's super duper hot, and as you can see in my drawing right there, it's like this. It's like burning and flames and fires and all that kind of stuff, and that is just the neatest thing ever. And the sun is basically the center of our universe. So everything revolves around the sun. Everything moves around the sun. So the sun is super important in our solar system because without the sun, what would happen? We'd be frozen because we need heat and we need light. We wouldn't be able to see either. So the sun is the most important thing in our solar system. What's next? Well, since I talked about the sun being a star, what else do you see at night when it's really, really clear? There's no clouds in the sky. There are little lights, right? Billions and billions and billions of stars in the sky. And some of the stars, many of the stars make up what's called astrological signs or zodiacs, or they make up kind of pictures in the sky. There's something called the Little Dipper, and it kind of looks like a pan that you would boil water. It has a handle, and the shape of them, if you connected the dots of the Big Dipper, it would look like a pan kind of on its side. So there's all different kinds of stars out there. I mean, billions and billions and billions, which is a huge, huge amount of number, like a huge amount of stars. That's a big number. Then when you look outside at nighttime, what do you see? There's the stars, and you might see some clouds, but what's that bright, shining, white light thing out there? Well, that's the moon, right? It's the moon. And we live on Earth, and Earth has one moon. Okay, we see it at night. Most of the time it's at night, but sometimes during the daytime, if it's really, really sunny, and maybe in the morning, if you look at the sky, if the sun's over there, maybe you look over there at the sky, you might see the moon still kind of glowing. So we have one moon, and some other planets in our solar system have more than one, like Saturn. Where is it? Where can I point? Saturn, this one right here. I think it has 3, but I have to check that. So there's lots of moons. But our Earth, that one, has just one. Okay, I talked about planets, right? Now, when I was a little kid, we always knew that we had 9 planets. That itty bitty one right here, this one right here, Pluto. Well, that's not called a planet anymore, I guess. So we're gonna talk about 8 planets. Pluto is just that tiny little small one right there. It's still out there, it's still out in space, but it's really, really small, and it's really, really far away from the sun, as you can see, right? But we don't really call it or classify it as a planet anymore. So now we have 8. So let's talk about those 8. Okay, I'm gonna move my head like this because if I stand up, I'm gonna have to change all of my camera angles and everything. Okay, so like I said, we have the sun. It is the brightest star and the hottest thing in our universe, the sun. This planet right here, it's called Mercury. Now, look at how close my picture is. In real life, it's still very, very far away from the sun, otherwise it would burn up, but it's the closest planet to the sun. And Mercury, if it's that close to the sun, it's gonna be what, cold? Do you think it's gonna be cold? If it's so close to the sun, no way, it's gonna be super hot. Mercury is a super hot planet, like no people could go there because it's just too hot. Many of these planets are too cold or too hot. This one's a hot one, Mercury. All right, this one right here, that's called Venus. Now, Venus is also hot because look at how close it is to the sun. Not as close as Mercury, but Venus, not only is it hot, but it's the brightest planet. So if someone took a telescope and looked up in the sky and you could find Venus, I think sometimes Venus is that way if you look, is it early in the morning before the sunrise sometimes? I don't know if it's during the winter or during the summer, but if you look even with your eyes, without a telescope, sometimes you can see Venus, and it's that way. That's called east, and it's really neat. It just looks like a really, really, really kind of a big star, but it's a planet. So Venus is the brightest planet. This one right here is next. It's the 1, 2, 3. It's the 3rd planet from the sun. Does that look familiar to you? It's got green and it's got blue. Well, that's where we live. That's the Earth. Sometimes it's called the 3rd rock from the sun. It's the 3rd one. It's far enough away from the sun where we can have people living and animals living, and the Earth is made up of mostly water because of all the big oceans that we have. There's like, I don't know if you understand what percent means, but 75%, which is a very big number, a lot of the Earth is made up of water. Even though we have a lot of land where people live and different countries and different continents, the Earth is where we live. And that little itty bitty dot right there, that's our moon, which I talked about earlier. That's not a planet, it's just the moon. Earth is my favorite because that's where we live. And that's where we know for sure that things can live and that we have water to live. So the plants can live and people can live and animals can live, and the Earth is just a perfect place to live when we talk about planets, because these two are too hot. There's Earth. Okay, next, that's called Mars. What color is that? It's the red planet. It's called Mars, and it's the red planet. Now, Mars isn't too far from Earth. I mean, it's still really far away in the sky, in space, but it's not so far where it's really, really cold or it's really, really hot. Mars, we actually have sent, we as in the United States, we have sent up things called rovers. And a rover is like a remote control car. And it's on the surface of Mars right now. And it's taking pictures of of what's on Mars. Now, sometimes Mars, when I see pictures of Mars where that rover, that little car, is taking pictures, to me, it looks like it's red, yes, and it looks like red, like the desert almost. If you see pictures of the desert, there's some like mountains, and there's some flat parts, but most of it looks kind of red. So it kind of looks like a place that we could have on Earth in the desert, but Mars doesn't have any people on it yet, and no one's really gone to Mars, but our rovers are there and they're taking pictures, and I think that's super cool. Mars, 4th planet from the sun, it's the red one, and we have cameras taking pictures from little remote control cars there, which I think is awesome. So cool. Space is awesome. All right, I'm gonna move my head now. Look at this guy. Pretty big, huh? This planet is called Jupiter. Jupiter is the biggest planet. Jupiter, if you see that dot, that brown dot right there, that's a storm that's on Jupiter that never goes away. It's a really big storm, and it just swirls and swirls and swirls and turns and turns and turns. And that's what we can see with a telescope. That spot is Jupiter's storm. I don't even know how long it's been happening, that big storm, but it just keeps happening and happening and happening. Now, again, none of these planets, other than the Earth, that's where we live, but no life, no plants, nothing lives on those that we know of. I don't think that they could live there because it's too cold over here and it's too hot over here. Mars is our best chance of finding some life maybe, or some water, maybe little, I don't know, little creatures live there, but no one's found them yet. Okay, Jupiter is the biggest planet. Now, I told you that Earth is my favorite, but my second favorite is this planet. This one right here is called Saturn. And I like Saturn because look at those rings. There's rings around Saturn. Maybe you've seen that planet before in a picture or in a book or on TV or something like that. Saturn is super cool because it has rings around it. Those rings are not like you couldn't, if we could go there and touch them, you couldn't touch the ring. It's a gas, which is something you'll learn when you're a little bit older. But Saturn is super cool because it has those awesome rings around it. And I think that looks special. It looks different from any of the other planets. And when you see that planet, you know, oh, that's the one with the rings. I hope I remember it's called Saturn. Saturn, cool planet. These are cold ones. No life could live there that we know of right now. The next one is Uranus. And Uranus, if you can look at the squiggles on the planet, they're going up and down. Because what's different about Uranus is it spins on its side. It spins like this. These other planets spin like this, but Uranus spins like this on its side. That's neat. Very cold there. These planets look pretty blue. This one isn't blue right here. But Uranus spins on its side. So very far away from the sun, so you know it's going to be super cold, like I said, but it spins like this on its side. And the last planet that's a planet in our solar system, because we don't talk about Pluto as a planet anymore, like I told you, is Neptune. Neptune is the farthest away from the sun, so you know it's gonna be cold. Cold, cold, cold there, colder than you can even imagine. So cold. And it's really windy there. Neptune is super windy. I don't even know how fast the wind blows there, but boy, oh boy, it's cold and windy. I don't think anyone would want to live there even if we could. That's Neptune. And then, like I said, Pluto. We don't talk about Pluto so much anymore as being a planet. That's the 9th, but we only talk about 8. I'm going to cover him up. Covered. Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth with our moon, and Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and our little friend Pluto. Those are our planets. I know that space is really something that's hard to understand, but let me tell you what, it's really neat stuff. It's unbelievable that we can send rocket ships into space to go take pictures. Did you know that we have something called the International Space Station? It's like a big, it's a spacecraft that sits out in space, and there's people on it, and they work on it, and it's out in space, and they kind of live there. I don't know how many people are there right now, but it's really neat, the International Space Station. There's American astronauts that have been there. There's Russian astronauts that have been there from Russia. It's unbelievable what's out in space. And you know what else is out in space? I'm filming you on my cell phone, but here's my case. There's a lot of satellites. Kind of hard to understand what that is. But out in space, right in the sky, there's a bunch of satellites, which are, machines that help us get our cell phones to work. What? That's cool. And it's hard to understand because I still don't understand, but it's really neat. Space is awesome. I hope my son really does study how to do stuff with spaceships and rockets because it's so cool. And he talks about some things that even I don't understand. I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying, buddy. But I'm glad you do. Maybe he's a little bit smarter than I am. I don't know. Anyway, so that's it for today. We talked about space. We talked about the Earth, number 3 on the list, from the sun. That's where we live, with our moon and the stars and the other planets. And there's a lot of other things out in the sky. There's comets that shoot through the sky. Oh, there's so many cool things about space. So if you have a chance to learn about it, give it a try, because space is super cool. All right, until next time, you've been hanging with Mrs. Housley. We'll see you later. Bye, everyone. Be safe.